Prison / jail guards of Reddit, what's the weirdest shit you've seen while walking past a cell on your patrol? I used to work third shift 10 PM to 6 AM at a prison in Oklahoma, usually in the same place until this happened. We had to do a count every hour on the hour. There was a guy in Bravo pod that would always ask me how I was doing. Never thought anything of it. During my 2 AM count I get to his cell, and he's standing at the door holding a piece of paper against the glass. It says, "Can I show you something? If yes, come back after count. If not, have a good night." So I loudly ask, "What the hell do you want to show me?" He starts shaking his head and puts his finger to his lip, shushing me. I say whatever and continue my count. After finishing the top rung I have to walk past his cell anyway, since it's at the bottom of the stairs. I shine my flashlight in his cell and again loudly ask what he wanted. He proceeded to pull out his dick and started masturbating to me. My dad, now retired, used to manage the special needs unit of a state prison. This is where they put inmates who are deaf, wheelchair bound, seriously mentally ill, developmentally challenged, etc., etc. One guy liked to tie his toothbrush to his shoelaces and wear it tucked into his shoe all the time. No, it wasn't a shiv. He just found that doing it kept the voices away. Another inmate worked in the cafeteria and liked to use the miniature powdered donuts as demon binoculars to scan for, you guessed it, demons. He was super duper dark skinned. The powdered sugar around his eyes really contrasted. A large black man looking through powdered donuts is strangely adorable. I'm a little late, but here goes. I work at a level 5 supermax prison in a small southwestern Virginia town, and we had this guy. Wow, this guy. He kept getting his ass kicked, and normally we kind of know why it's happening, but in this case, we didn't. Come to find out, other inmates thought he had drugs. One day we caught him with white looking powder on his nose, so we had to take him out and drug test him and cavity search him as well. This happened 4 to 5 times over the course of 5 months and he passed every test and search every time. Well, one day we caught him. This guy was beating off, letting his jizz dry, crushing it, and snorting the shit. Good times. My brother works at a juvenile detention center in a 6 offender unit. As he was going over one of his cases he read the kid's charges and learned he had sex with his grandma's dog, as well as raping a few neighbors. When my brother interviewed him and asked him about his crimes and how he felt, he was remorseful and crying. My brother inquired, and the kid was most sad about not being able to see his kids grow up. Apparently his grandma's dog had puppies. He thought he was the father. This is both completely screwed up and desperately sad. People aren't magically born this messed up most of the time. They become this way after years of untreated mental health issues or serious abuse. I've spent nearly 10 years working in mental health, and for every guess what insane thing happened at work today story I have, there's an equally tragic backstory. I work in a juvenile detention facility. We had to put a kid in a secure room, think padded walls with a camera, because he was self-harming. When you do that you remove everything they can self-harm with, so like no pencils or shoelaces or whatever. Dude pulled his braces out of his mouth and started self-harming with the wires. I was in a mental hospital for kids under 18 for about a week due to suicide watch. Some of the self-harming kids would take a pen to their room, crack it open with their teeth, and use the shattered plastic to self-harm. It really is an addiction. It really is an addiction. And it bothers me when so many people say otherwise. I used to self-harm, and when trying to quit, attempted to get rid of everything I could self-harm with and instead wound up just getting creative. Like, I'd attempt to cut my arm with the corner of my bookshelf. I'd use the bed frame, anything. Thankfully I don't anymore, but it's really rough and saddening when people turn to self-harm. My sister is a prison nurse. I texted her this thread and asked what's her story. Her reply, "Lol, that's pretty gross. The new trend at my prison is a dude's tie a string around their dick and then attach it to their big toe going through their pants. Then when they are talking to myself or other female staff they'll sit there and tap their foot to get off. I was told if I see anyone tapping their foot to ask them to pull their pant leg up and see if there's string. Lol, ridiculous. Who knows what they'll think of next. can't wait for middle school students to read this and start a new trend. I'm a security guard at a psych hospital, so I feel qualified to throw a story in here. One night I was called to the adult psych floor, and on arrival I was told the patient will not give us back her radio, and she has now put it into her vagina. I will never forget the euphoria of walking down the hallway toward the room and hearing Hootie and the Blowfish blaring. CSO here for 7 years. Weirdest one for me is a guy jizzing on his window then licking it off. Definitely a /WTF moment. You are what you eat, so maybe he was just being himself. I work in a level 5 state prison. My first day on the job, there was an inmate in the disciplinary housing unit who keeps getting sent to us from the state psychiatric hospital because they can't handle him. When the officers working on the unit walked up to his cell, he began to rip apart his balls with his own hands while yelling, "I feel no pain." This was the second time. I was a co for a pre-release center that had a dorm-style facility. During a normal security check, I was walking through the bathroom and just happened to see something large and odd sitting on the ground beside an inmate's feet behind a stall door. Yes, the inmate bathrooms actually had stalls with doors. Well, I opened the door and the inmate was just sitting on the toilet not doing anything at all while holding a honey bun. And the thing on the ground by his feet. A giant 5-pound block of butter. A lot of other crazy stuff happened, like catching a prostitute in the dorm, 3 escapes in one day, etc. But the butter story has always stuck with me. Edit. I'll elaborate some more. The inmate that had the butter and honey bun wasn't the smartest guy and people often took advantage of him. He worked in the kitchen and another inmate told him to steal the butter, so he, as to why they would want the butter. Well, the inmates actually loved to cook. There was one individual who would spend all day mixing different stuff together, rice/fish/seasonings, etc. And of course everything is better with butter. I worked in a small jail in my home district. The most memorable character I had the pleasure or rather dismay of meeting was known around the jail as the Serpent. I kid you not, during shower time this guy would completely soap himself up and wiggle slide around the room, hissing violently. Lots of other great and significantly more disgusting stories, but that's the one which stood out for me the most. If I got a life sentence, this is the kind of shit I would do to pass time. Corrections officer here. I was leaving work one day when I was told to head to the infirmary. We get there, and the inmate is trying to off himself. How? Glad you asked. He had bitten his fourth in half and was trying to suck all his blood out through it. He also made several attempts to spit it on us. I also saw a guy making cave paintings on his cell wall with his own fesses. I love my career, always something new to deal with. One WTF moment that wasn't sexual was this one kid had collected newspapers and turned his cell into a human hamster cage. When we extracted him, he was balled up under his bunk like a hamster. The place even smelled like a hamster cage. Edit for spelling. God, I wish you had given him a hamster wheel connected to a gen to power the prison. This actually happens in Brazil. Prisoners are allowed to ride a bike which provides electricity back to the prison in exchange for a reduced marginally, like a fraction of a day sentence. Apparently behavior issues are curbed, and the population has responded well to the concept. I've been in my current job for about a year now, and have seen some shit I never thought I'd see. Most of the craziest stuff comes from the craziest people. We had a guy come in on an out-of-state warrant, so we were holding him until Texas came to pick him up. The kicker is that he was in one hell of a drug psychosis. I've actually seen 3 of these now. They're borderline scary. He was in a safety cell for 3 days being observed every 15 minutes by whoever was on post. His log was insane. 0145 bumping into wall, 0203 playing and fesses, 0218 screaming, and it went on with no sleep for days. Anyway, I was lucky rookie enough to get to pass meds to this guy with our nurse. She handed him his pills through the tray slot, and he took each individual pill and shoved them in his ass. I was just standing there mouth wide kind laughing, like what the duck. The nurse was just like, "Welp, alright," and walked away. I was still watching the guy walk around amongst all his Picassos on the walls when one little pink pill fell out of his ass. He eventually turned around and saw it. Of course, why waste a good pill? So he just popped that sucker in his mouth, swallowed it without flinching, and continued stumbling around the rubber room. An old co-worker had previously worked in Guantanamo Bay. She said she once had to get on the PA system while an inmate was showering to say, "Detainee, remove the shampoo bottle from your rectum." Apostrophe.